You're watching a More Beautiful World podcast with Susan Renee, a channel for those of you with open minds and courageous hearts who are looking for guidance on your trauma healing and personal transformation journeys. Here, I share with you the powers of intentional plant medicine use, along with other holistic therapies and spiritual guidance to guide you on your path forward. I'm so eager to share with you what I've learned in working with these sacred plant medicines on my own journey, including the knowing that what we do to heal ourselves, we do to heal the whole collective. Join me as I share my experiences, knowledge, and wisdom to guide your trauma healing so you can transform your life, and so that together we can create the more beautiful world we all know is possible. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of A More Beautiful World. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you part 2 of my 4th medicine retreat with grandmother ayahuasca. And in this part 2 episode, we will be talking about the integration process that I went through. This integration period happened during my first full winter in North Country, and it definitely had a theme of darkness in it for sure. So today I'm going to share with you some of my experiences that I went through during this darker integration period, including a lot of discomfort that I had to move through. I'll also be sharing the compilation of blessings and lessons that came from this integration and what knowledge I'm really working on turning into wisdom in my life for my personal transformation moving forward. So if you are ready to understand a little bit more about integration or what integration could look like after a medicine ceremony with ayahuasca, or even if you are just wanting some medicine in the form of my shared lessons that came from this journey, then this episode is for you. A quick ask before we dive into this episode. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please drop me a rating or review. I'd love to know what you think about this podcast, and your support and your rating does help me get these messages out into the world. And also make sure you follow the pod while you're there too, if you haven't already. And of course, if you are watching this episode on YouTube, please make sure you like this video and subscribe for more. And also drop me a comment on what you think about the episode at the end. I always love hearing from you. Integration. What a fun episode to always record. I will admit these are probably some of my favorites, because on the journey of recovery and personal transformation, what I have really come to understand is that the work always continues. Our transformation is ongoing work, and integration is always available to us if we allow it. It really comes from having this expanded self-awareness, allowing ourselves to receive knowledge as we go through our journey, and then taking, that knowledge, taking what we learned and having, again, this expanded self-awareness to turn that knowledge into wisdom in our lives. I do have an entire episode on the process of turning knowledge into wisdom through the process of integration. That is episode 61 of this podcast. So if you want to know just like a little bit more about integration in general and how to work through an integration process, or how I approach working through integration, check out that episode. So before we dive in to this integration process, which has been so beautiful, I want to let you all know, I just created a new container called the Alchemize Collective, which is a monthly membership I am now officially launching. And I'm really excited for this sacred transformational container where I'll actually be working with you to do the integration work and transform our lives together. Really my focus is to just helping you all do life better. really helping to make this a more beautiful world for us all. Because as we better ourselves, we beautify our world. So if you are listening and you want some support on your integration process and you want to do some work together, let me know. I would love to have you in this beautiful sacred container, the Alchemize Collective, so we can all work on our integration together. So let's talk about integration, and really I always like to start with what was my intention, going into this fourth ayahuasca retreat. I always have several intentions, but the greatest intention that I hold is to really let go of what no longer serves me so I can be of greatest service to the world and really live in my most authentic expression as I do so. So I set that intention for the ceremony. Hopefully, you listened to part 1 of the series so you know what transpired in the medicine as I was going through the retreat weekend. But all that transpired pairing with my intention has really created some profound shifts for me in these last couple months, both personally and professionally. And so I'm going to share with you some specifics and specific circumstances and experiences that came through in this integration process. And also, I'm going to be sharing with you just some overall lessons and blessings that came from this integration process that really I do feel called to share with you all so it can become your medicine as well. So I'm going to start by sharing a few of the bigger, experiences in detail before I get into some of the overall lessons and blessings. And if you remember again from part 1 of the series, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it now. So more of this episode will make sense to you. But while I was in ceremony, I had a download that I really needed to kind of clean up some past relationships, clean up some energy and cut some cords, mostly in order to fully step into this new sacred partnership with David that I was just beginning. And a big thing that came up in ceremony that came almost immediately as integration started was the need to let go fully of my ex-husband and letting go of having him in my life. So a quick backstory on that. He and I randomly ended up in the Denver area together and had kind of reconnected, just seeing each other every several weeks, for a lunch or a dinner. And I really had hoped that there was a friendship, that was possible with him, even though I know we were not meant to be together any longer. I still did have deep love and still do have deep love for my ex-husband, but a couple of weeks before the ceremony experience, had gone out to lunch with him. It was right before David and I had officially started dating. And my ex-husband had actually tried to kiss me. And without getting into all the details of that story, it was really triggering for me because one of the biggest issues in the marriage and in after marriage was I couldn't trust him. And I thought he would change. I thought he could change. I thought maybe he did change. And again, I have this glaring example of not being able to trust him. So I knew again in ceremony what came up is I had to let go of this relationship. Obviously, without having trust, I can't even have a friendship with him. And that really was impossible. And it wasn't serving my greatest and highest good, to keep him in my life. So I have this download. I gotta kind of clear him out and cut him out and really to fully step into the sacred partnership with David, and to honor that love and to honor myself, and what I deserve and what I'm worth and moving forward. So because I started to see that keeping this relationship with my ex-husband was really creating a lot of pain, it was really stirring the pot of resentment and lack of trust. And so right as ceremony ended and I was on the way back from ceremony with David, I brought this up to him because it was really probably the first body of work I was knowing I needed to work on after ceremony. So David and I talked on the way back home, and I shared with him what had transpired in ceremony and what I was feeling called to do. And again, I shared it felt like another big piece in my puzzle, and acknowledging my worth and knowing that I can choose, right, to have healthy, uplifting relationships in my life. And so as I talked it through with David, what he reflected back to me is that we are still able to love people. We are still able to pray for people and wish them all the greatest and highest good on their journey. And that doesn't mean that we have to have them in our life, right? That we have to keep communications with them, that we have to, keep some form of relationship with them. Like, he showed me and helped me see, I can still pray for him. I can still send him love. I can still wish him well on his journey. And I don't have to have him in my life, especially if I cannot trust him. And, David had asked me on the ride home, what benefit am I getting out of having that relationship in my life? And immediately what came in was there is no benefit. So with that, I knew it had to be done, and I kind of felt into it for about a week or so, because it's never good to do any big decisions, within that first week after ceremony. So I sat on it for about a week, and I ended up realizing I didn't even want to talk to him about it. It felt a lot more safe to write him an email. And I wrote him an email, and in short, sent him love, sent him light, sent him forgiveness, for all that we had gone through, and let him know I can't have him in my life, and that this would be my last communication with him. And it was difficult, it was painful and it was uncomfortable. It brought up a lot of grief. And it also immediately felt like this weight, was lifted off my shoulder. Um, which we'll talk a little bit more about some of the lessons I feel like that came in from that experience. But that was a big step for me, both in acknowledging my self-worth, stepping into the sacred partnership with David, and really clearing out, what no longer served me, in the form of a relationship I was still holding on to. So I could probably do a whole episode on that. I will leave it at that for now. Because again, one of the reasons I did that was because of my new sacred partnership I had just stepped into. And, from the moment that David told me how he felt about me, I knew in the deepest part of my heart and soul that he is, my sacred partner, and he is my prayer answered and is what I have been, wanting in my life. And so his partnership and his love, and the fact that he is my sacred partner was super apparent through this integration process, and continues to be, to this day. So post-ceremony, David and I were fortunate enough to spend a few days together, which was beautiful. And then we had to spend 2 weeks apart in December. And then we came back together and got to spend Christmas and New Year's together, which was beautiful. And then we went like 4 weeks apart before we got, to see each other again. But what was really interesting and what is interesting in general about sacred partnership that has been coming in for me since the ceremony is that, man, the blessings that you get from sacred partnership, and what I've been feeling in this integration is just the amount of incredible love and connection, and how safe I feel, how easy it feels to be my authentic self and to be vulnerable and to be intimate, and to feel so fully seen and heard and loved and supported. It's all just so gorgeous. There's this beautiful, uplifting, magical energy to it. And it also comes with getting triggered. And I believe our sacred partners really have this uncanny ability to reflect back to us where we still have work to do, and so it really is this beautiful combination of this deep, profound love, this deep, amazing, magical feeling. And it comes with like a little bit of discomfort too. Because again, when you are in sacred partnership, it is about growth. It is about expansion. I believe it's, stepping into a relationship so you can get closer to God, source, creator, whatever you want to call it, together. And to do that, and to go through growth and expansion, there is some change that needs to happen, which means there could be some discomfort and uncomfortable moments. So I'll share a small and still profound example. When David was here visiting with me, um, and it's an example about caffeine. So David was supposed to only be here visiting with me for a week. And during that week is Christmas week. So, we're indulging a little bit more, like making big breakfasts, like pancake breakfast, having coffee, drinking yerba mate, just like enjoying the season, and kind of almost being like on vacation. Well, David ended up getting stuck here for an extra week because of all the craziness that was going on with flights during that time. And so we kind of went back into our normal routines. And David doesn't really drink a lot of caffeine in his day-to-day life. And so, and I do, I drink usually at least a cup, of yerba mate or green tea, or coffee or something, every day. And he doesn't. So we like went through this week together of like enjoying, and indulging. And then all of a sudden he kind of goes back to regular routine and doesn't have caffeine. And again, in so many ways, I commend him for that. That's amazing to not have a caffeine addiction. But it made me feel really freaking terrible that I still wanted to have the caffeine. So when he told me that he wasn't going to have any, this like Monday morning, right after the holidays have ended, and I still wanted my cup of caffeine, I immediately felt judged. I felt rejected. I felt less than, I felt like I was being labeled as an addict. And let me be clear, this is absolutely nothing that he did. He did not belittle me for it. He did not, judge me for it. He did not make me, he didn't say anything about it. In fact, he's like, yeah, have caffeine, like whatever. It's all good. So there was no judgment like directly coming from him, but it was from me. This was like my feeling and what I was interpreting, right? And again, it really hit on lack of self-worth, right? And lack of full self-acceptance. So it was my own work, right? Showing up that I really needed again to love and accept myself fully, exactly where I was at. And I remember the day that it happened, I was I felt so judged that I wanted to hide. And I remember I came into my office here and I was like, oh, I'm just going to like stay busy with work and I'm going to avoid David and I'm not going to let him see me, drink my cup of yerba mate. And again, it was so silly, but I had awareness on it the whole day. And it really gave me an opportunity that evening after I did finish work to communicate with him what showed up, because I watched myself push him away that day. And I wanted to hide. I didn't want to be seen because I was feeling less than. I was feeling like I was not enough, like I was unworthy, like I was just a freaking addict, and again, this is a theme in my integration work, is really doing more work on deepening into self-worth, right? And it's a lesson I'll touch a little bit more on later in this episode. But it gave me a beautiful opportunity to communicate with him and be vulnerable and, get into an intimate conversation of what showed up. And so I say all of that to say, our sacred partners, while beautiful and magical and magnificent and such a joy and gift in our lives, it can also be a big mirror. And so that has been part of this integration is now I have this big, beautiful mirror in my life that helps me see areas I still need to grow in. So I trust, those of you out there who are in sacred partnership maybe can relate to some of this dichotomy that shows up in sacred partnership. And for those of you who are looking for a sacred partnership, I believe part of that work is getting yourself ready to have a mirror, to have a mirror so present in your life. To again, show you the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, like all the pieces of you. You really have to get yourself ready for that strong mirror to come in, and be ready to continue to grow and develop. So while it does bring in, again, so much joy and love and laughter and pleasure, it does bring in, some levels of discomfort as you grow and expand and get opportunities for that as well. So that's a little bit on sacred partnership and more to come on a couple of those lessons through that experience. But one thing I mentioned in the last episode, hopefully you listened. I talked about little spirit baby that came in for both David and I, and how there's this little spirit out there who wants to come in. And so, we're asking him to be patient. But what was fascinating is I have this like baby energy I came home with, and like just feeling spirit baby and starting to feel open to opportunities of having a baby. And it was literally like 2 days after getting home from ceremony, my dear soul sister, Alora, who you may have heard on this podcast, she's been a guest, or maybe you saw it on YouTube. She actually came to visit with her son, her youngest son, who at the time was like 9 or 10 months old. And he's my little godson. I love him so much, and I just have such a special bond with him. But ultimately, they came and stayed with me for like a long weekend. They were here with me for like 4 days, and just feeling his little baby love and like smooching on that little baby, and being with my sister and watching her, be a mom and just play mom. And it really was a beautiful opportunity in this integration process, like right out of the gate, to see that it's possible to have a child and to travel and to visit with your sister, and, just his little love and his little spirit, and just how innocent and beautiful this little child was. It was such a gorgeous experience for me because, I'm the youngest of one sister and two step siblings. So I was kind of like the youngest of four growing up in many ways. I never really babysat kids. I've always lived pretty far away from most of my nieces and nephews. So I've never really had a big experience with children. And this little visit just kind of opened my eyes and opened my heart to, the possibility, and that possibility solidifying of having a child, come into this world, which was, again, just a really beautiful part of this integration. So professionally, something showed up with this integration that, I'll be honest, I was not expecting. But remember, my intention was set to let go of what no longer serves me so I can be of the greatest and highest service to the world, while honoring my authentic self, right? And honoring my authentic expression. So kind of going into this sit, but definitely thereafter, I was starting to really feel disenchanted with my work. I love holistic medicine, and it will always be a part of what I do. But some of the clinical aspects I was starting to feel disenchanted with and a little uninspired. And really, I've been having this deeper calling for something more that's been growing and growing. This burning desire has been growing within me. And so
I kind of started in December to really allow myself time and space to explore what is next. Really saying a lot of prayers, asking for guidance, asking for omens. And, a big part of what's been showing up is doing more work with the medicine. And doing more work with psychedelic medicines and integration and just some of the plant medicines in general, even the non-psychedelic plant medicines. And so I have been kind of letting that percolate and cultivate. And I, started having some opportunities during this integration period to serve cacao, which has been beautiful and something I'm really feeling good about and stepping into, and I've gotten some great feedback on. Um, have gotten a few opportunities to serve some hape and teach some of my soul tribe about hape and how to self-serve and how to serve. And um, I got to go on a hike with a dear sister of mine and teach her how to use hape. And we did a little ceremony out in the foothills together. And, I was praying, right, and asking for like guidance and omens. And she said to me something like, I see you as a medicine woman and you are just so gifted and you really belong in this space. And, I see you and I see your gifts. And man, that was such a beautiful reflection and omen for me. And this has really continued through this integration process for me, being led by the medicine. When you sit with the medicine, it will guide you. It is always a part of you. And so through some of my medicine circles and through my tribe in the medicine space, I've been guided to integration coaching, and working more with plant medicines and working more with psychedelic medicines as part of the trauma recovery and transformation process. So, people with trauma, right, and addiction, right, trauma and addiction really go hand in hand. Um, a lot of things present like anxiety and depression. And with that, it's been a big part of my practice and in holistic medicine. So now bringing in, more with the medicine, the plant medicines, the psychedelic medicines, and stepping into integration coaching, it's really exciting, and I'll be honest, I'm still working on this full transition and finalizing it, but it is here, it is happening. And it was a dark December. um Trying to navigate how I was feeling about my work, and even into early January was a good 6-week process of being pretty confused. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but doing some big shifts from this process. So, I mentioned in my intro, this integration was happening during winter, and it was cold and it was dark. I mean, literally, I think I was probably in the 2 darkest months of the year during this integration process. So, sun goes down early, sun comes up late. There's a lot of darkness. It was cold, not used to the cold after my 15 years in Phoenix. And part of this integration process was really allowing myself to sit in the darkness and to sit with my own darkness. So there was a lot of shadow work that was happening during this integration process. I not only was now living alone, so spending more time alone, it's like winter. So you don't really feel called to go outside too much or go out and do too many things when it's cold and it's dark. And so I spent a lot of time allowing myself to do the shadow work and to feel some of the darker, more challenging emotions that we all have, right? That is part of our human experience. So I spent a lot of time feeling angry, sad, frustrated, impatient, unworthy, unlovable. And I sat with it. And there was a lot of journaling that happened this integration period. There was a lot of crying. Thank goodness for David and our beautiful conversations. He held a lot of space for me and helped me process a lot of what was showing up. This integration process really brought up this deep need I had had for a long time of needing to feel seen, needing to feel heard, needing to feel understood, and really allowing myself to acknowledge that I have lacked this feeling for a long time. And to almost kind of grieve that and be sad about that and allowing myself to be okay with that. And allowing also myself to make changes moving forward so I do feel more seen and heard and understood. Right. So it was really allowing these emotions to be part of my experience and learning to witness them during this integration period without the harsh judgment of them. And it's something I'm still working on. Right. I think, again, that's why the work always continues. But I was inviting that in to really allow it to be an opportunity to expand my awareness, and do some shadow integration work, right? Because it's okay to have these difficult, darker emotions. They really are a beautiful part of the human experience. I mean, how beautiful of a gift to be in a human body and to feel sad. You can actually feel kind of joyful about feeling sad. Right? Because again, without feeling sad, you wouldn't know what it feels like to be happy. You need the contrast. So it really is a gift. And I was working on some of this darkness and remembering without the darkness, there is no light. And, fully accepting myself, right? If I want to feel whole, I need to accept the dark and the light parts of me. So that was a big part of this winter's integration work. And in that, I'll share part of what I was doing during the darkness time. And in this shadow work, I was doing a lot of dream work. I am fascinated by dreams, and maybe I will do a whole episode on dream work and how I approach it. Because I do think it's a beautiful window into our subconscious and unconscious minds. I think we get a lot of symbols and a lot of messages through our dreams. And so I started doing some deeper analysis of dreams, doing some dream journaling, doing some dream analysis. And there were a few themes that kept showing up. And again, it really guided me in my integration work because I kept having this theme showing up in my dreams of this needing to be accepted from others, and this really deep longing to feel accepted and to feel loved. And I know this stems from childhood abandonment, and experiences of feeling excluded and rejected as a child from, my siblings and from my parents. But it really came down to, again, this like self-acceptance and this self-worth, and like really fully recognizing my worth does not come from being accepted by others, right? My worth does not come by being loved by others. It comes from myself, right? That self-worth comes from the self. So what was fascinating as I was swirling in the darkness and doing all this dream work and just feeling a lot of uncomfortable emotions, I actually have a friend out here who's an astrologer, and I did my first natal chart, like birth chart reading with her. And that was extremely illuminating. Probably just as illuminating as a plant medicine journey, to be honest. She is really good. But without getting too much into those details, a very fascinating thing is we have this aspect in our charts called Chiron. He is an asteroid, I believe. But Chiron is known as the wounded healer, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But what he shows in our charts is, and where he shows up, I guess, points to like our biggest wound that we need to heal in this lifetime. And guess what my biggest wound is to heal in this lifetime? Lack of self-worth. And so when she said that in my astrology reading, I was like, of course it is. It's been a big theme for me. And again, learning to cultivate that from within. right? Like really feeling that self-love, feeling that unconditional love, right? Feeling so worthy of all that I desire. That whole astrology reading was just a ceremony within itself and was so incredibly illuminating. But the self-worth theme was big this integration period. And I'll speak a little bit more about that here in a moment. So, without making this too long of a podcast, I want to get into some of the lessons and the blessings and the medicine that I feel called to share with you from this integration process. As I sat here today reflecting and having read through, my journal entries for, preparing for this episode, I now have a lot of hindsight, right, to reflect on these experiences. And as they say, hindsight is 2020. So I see things with a lot more clarity as I look back. But I want to share some of the lessons and the blessings again, and the medicine that I am being called to share with you all from this integration experience. So one of my biggest lessons I want to share with you today is the fact that you have to create space for new energy to come in if you want a new experience or new energies in your life. There is no way to create a new paradigm, to create a new life if you are holding on to your past pains, holding on to your past experiences, holding on to your past traumas, your past material things, your past relationships, your old self-limiting beliefs. Any of that is going to prevent you from moving forward. So we truly must learn to let go of what no longer serves us if we want to allow new ways of being, new experiences to come in. And again, that lesson really stood out to me as I let go of my ex-husband and having, communication in any relationship with him, to fully create the space for my sacred partnership. So take that for what you will. I have a whole episode on creating space for new beginnings, and it's a great episode if you haven't listened to it already. But that felt like another reminder during this integration period that came in. So another big lesson from this integration is courage. Man, courage is facing our fears, right? And having the ability to do something even though it may frighten us or we may be afraid of it. So have courage, my friends. Courage to let go of the old paradigms, the old ways, the things that are holding you back. Right? I know it's taken a lot of courage for me to step more fully into my power and to allow more of my authentic expression, to shine through as a medicine woman, as an integration coach, and stepping into this plant medicine space more deeply. It's taking a lot of courage to develop a new way of being. And it's worth it. Facing our fears and doing the things that frighten us and scare us. That's where our growth comes from. That's where our expansion comes from. So I share with all of you, maybe reflect for yourself. In what ways can you be more courageous? How can you, really lean into the things that you're afraid of in the name of your own personal growth and expansion and allowing yourself to be more fully the authentic expression of who you are. So another big lesson and blessing that's come in is around faith. This integration period has been a big test in faith for me and continues to be. I pray for faith every day and continued faith and continued deepening of the faith. And again, it's faith that it will all work out, right? All the things I'm desiring that aren't here yet. Faith and deep trust and divine timing, that everything will work out as it's meant to. Continued faith that I'm being guided, that my angels and my guides are with me and that they're putting omens and signs and synchronicities in place. Faith that answers, will come in as they are meant to. I'll share a funny thing that happened during integration. Especially as I was feeling into what I'm going to do for my work and wasn't really having answers. It was a lot of crickets for a while. I kept asking spirit, I was pulling oracle cards. I kept asking spirit, like, give me an answer of what I'm supposed to do. Give me an answer of like what I'm supposed to do next. And for 3 consecutive times, I kept pulling the same card out of a 52 card deck, kept pulling the same card, that all things happen pretty much in divine timing, and that I wasn't supposed to get answers yet, because I wasn't meant to have the answers yet. Because if I had the answers, I would be scared of what those answers were. So it wasn't time to have the answers yet. And this card was like all about knowing and trusting and having faith in divine timing, that I would have the answers when they were meant to come. I'll admit that was some frustration. That was some of the darker energies that were coming up that I was sitting with and working through, because asking for answers and then being told you're not meant to have the answers just yet, that's a little frustrating, but it is also such a test of faith and keeping that faith. So, if you feel like you want answers out there and you're not getting them, my medicine and my lesson for you here is keep the faith and know that sometimes we're not meant to have the answers yet. So keep your faith steady, my friends. It's important. And again, it's not easy. It's not always easy, but that's where I find prayer and meditation helpful. But do your best to keep the faith and trust, because some answers have come in, and I know more answers are coming. There is a lot of faith I'm holding right now for my future, and I will continue to do so. Big part of this integration. Along with faith, adding on to faith, I think faith goes hand in hand with patience. And that has been another big repeating lesson during this integration process. And oh boy, my friends, patience is a fucking virtue for a reason. I feel like it is one hell of a virtue to cultivate. I can be quite impatient. I do totally recognize the fact that I like immediate results. I like instant gratification. And so, I want so badly, like even right now, to have my like new life up and running, right? I want all the new aspects of my business up and running. I want that flourishing. I want to be living with David. I want our life figured out. I want to be doing more medicine work. Like I want it all right now. And then when you just take a breath, you got to have patience. And in the lesson of patience, we have to remember it is about the journey, not the destination. And so I pray every day for patience. Patience to wait for the right time, for David and I to move and move in together. Patience to start our lives together. Patience in this transition with my business. Patience with myself as I continue the work on integration and growth and expansion and transformation and healing and recovery. Patience. On David's last day here on his last trip, most recent trip, we went for a hike and we went and sat down at the top of this beautiful mountain with this gorgeous view. And we did a hape ceremony before diving into a deep and profound conversation, which I'll tell you more about another episode. But as we were like getting ready to begin our conversation, he said, "Oh, I hear from the trees, I hear in the wind, patience." And I was like, of course you hear patience. That's been a big part of this integration and the lessons. So patience, my friends, again, it's a virtue for a reason. And again, I feel like that patience goes hand in hand with faith, right? So be patient, keep the faith. And 2 more little lessons, blessings to speak of. I think knowing and really cultivating and working so hard maybe it doesn't even have to be hard. Maybe it can be easy, but putting a lot of attention and intention into our self-worth, and maybe this will speak to you all out there. Maybe it won't, but ultimately I know it's a big body of my work. And keeping my heart open, allowing love in, allowing myself to really feel worthy of love, and to keep reminding myself that I am love, and I am worthy of love. I'm worthy of receiving that love. I'm worthy of this relationship, with David. I'm worthy of following my dreams. I'm worthy of receiving all the good that I desire, just as you are fully worthy and deserving of receiving all the good that you desire. Our desires are beautiful and magical, and cultivating that belief that we deserve to receive them fully, right? That is the key in allowing those blessings and desires in our lives to flow in. And I know this work on self-worth for me is a continued work. The one thing that has been really apparent is that it is a big part of learning to love ourselves unconditionally. And I feel a big part of my own work has been recognizing, I have done a lot of work to love myself. And in so many ways, I do really love myself so much more than I did a few years ago. And that's really beautiful. And there's still some work to be done, and really feeling worthy. Of receiving, financial abundance, worthy of receiving love from others. So my work, really is in self-worth, but fully loving myself with no conditions, that unconditional love for self. That is my body of work, knowing I am worthy. And again, it's a big key, I think, to unlocking, us achieving our dreams. So let's work on that together if it calls to you. And the last bit of medicine I'm going to share with y'all today is the time is now. I talked a little bit about this in the previous episode, but there's a quote that was standing out to me as I was getting ready to record this episode. And that is, day one or one day, you get to decide. This integration has brought up a lot of resistance on my ego, my old self, really trying to hold on, to what it has been. And I'm really doing a lot of work stepping into the fact that the time is now, and all we really have, you guys, is the now. It's this present moment, and doing what we can right now is what is important. So I'm really working to let go, of this, like, oh, I'll have my dreams one day, or I'll do that later when, and like letting go of all these excuses and these, I guess they're really just excuses, right? It's time to allow myself to have it, right? To feel that full worth and allow it in and go after things right now. There's no more waiting. And I've said this before in many podcasts, the world needs you. The world needs your medicine. And the time is now. The time is now. So, yes, we can be patient. Yes, we can, make small incremental changes. Whatever the divine timing is going to be perfect. But I'm telling you, go after it right now. There's no more waiting. It really is time to thrive. It's time to be all in, to be all that you are, to be all that I am. Because again, all we have is right now. And what's been really apparent to me is that making the most of each moment is everything. And it's been a big theme during this integration. And that's why I felt like it was also an important reminder to you all. So those are my lessons and blessings and overviews of this integration. It's going to be interesting because during this integration period, I did a sweat lodge, have a whole episode on that. And then I transitioned into a peyote medicine ceremony, followed by another ayahuasca journey. So yeah, I have some more I will be recording on soon about where that ceremony prep all started, what those ceremonies were like, and what that integration process has been like. Because, as I said before, the work, it always continues, my friends, and I am deep in some continued integration right now. So, if there is one final thing I'm going to say in this podcast, it's that if you can get one nugget of information to take away from any plant medicine ceremony, any yoga retreat experience, any of these transformational experiences that you go through, if you can get one nugget of information out of them and take that knowledge and integrate it into your life and turn it into wisdom, that is amazing. And it is so helpful for your transformation and recovery journey. So with that, I invite you to think of maybe one piece of knowledge that you felt resonance with here today in this episode, and see if you can work, through integrating it into your own wisdom, moving forward on your transformation so it can become your medicine too. But that is it, my friends. Thanks for staying with me on this long podcast episode. And that wraps up my 4th ayahuasca retreat experience. There will be more medicine journeys to come, so stay tuned for more. But as always, I feel like the medicine gave me exactly what I needed. And I have been doing the work to take the knowledge I gained and that I received, and I am turning it into wisdom to carry on my life moving forward. And I am so humbled and so grateful to have the opportunity to work with these medicines. And I'm grateful for the blessings and the lessons and the knowledge that I receive. And really so grateful for this forum, and for this podcast to be able to share it all with you so it can become medicine to guide your journey forward too. Okay, tribe, let's remember this is all about making the world a more beautiful place, and that begins with you. Because as you better yourself and you move through your own healing and transformation journey, you beautify our world. I hope you found this episode helpful as you navigate your own recovery and personal transformation, and I so appreciate you being on your healing journey with me. As always, if you need support on your journey as you heal from trauma, or on preparing for or integrating any plant medicine journeys, make sure you grab your free clarity call with me below, because I would be so honored to guide you on your trauma healing and your personal recovery and transformation. But that is all for today, tribe. Until next time, much love to you all.
Hey tribe, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button below and then click subscribe so you catch future episodes. And remember, I've got lots of free resources for you to learn about the powers of intentional plant medicine use in order to support your trauma healing and personal transformation journey. So make sure you check them out in the description below and help in making this a more beautiful world for us all. Thanks again for tuning in, tribe. And until next time, much love to you all.